Let's talk about the Kyler Murray situation. This is just fantastic on so many levels.
Can we read the headline?
which is
Cardinals bitch out of homework clause for Kyler Murray.
Lead to laugh. What a professional.
Yes.
What a broadcast professional. That's
I think I spit my wine out when I was reading it yesterday.
By the way, imagine that on the Chyron if you were doing TV at the bottom of the screen. Did the Cardinals bitch out with their homework clause with Kyler Murray?
Get details after this.
Now, do you want to hear what Kyler Murray had to say yesterday? Because he called a press conference himself because of all the comments. Yeah. And so here was a little bit from Kyler Murray, and then the Cardinals responded afterwards.
To think that I can accomplish everything that I've accomplished in my career and not be a student of the game and not have that passion and not take this serious is almost, it's disrespectful, and it's almost a joke. You know, I'm honestly flattered that y'all think that at my size I can go out there and not prepare for the game and not take it serious. It's disrespectful, I feel like, to my peers, to all the great athletes and great players that are in this league. This game's too hard. To play the position that I play in this league, it's too hard. I refuse to let my work ethic and my preparation be in question. You know, I've put an incomprehensible amount of time and blood, sweat, tears, and work into what I do, whether it's football or baseball. People can't even comprehend the amount of time that it takes to do two sports at a high level in college, let alone do it, be the first person to do it ever at my size.
So then it came out a short time afterwards that the Cardinals have removed the homework clause from the contract.
So, how much was connected to that?
Meaning
how much money was connected to that clause?
It was never clear how much was directly connected to whether it's guarantees or escalators and all that. Yeah, it wasn't clear, but there was some sort of monetary tie, and now it's irrelevant. But here's what's interesting to me, okay, when you really step back for a second and think about this. So let's say Arizona approached Kyler Murray and his agent and said, look, you want this deal? Okay. But here's our reservations. We don't think Kyler studies enough. So we're going to put in a clause that if he doesn't study enough, we can recoup back some of the monies that he's owed, right? We want to make sure he's accountable for studying so we can track it. We can make sure if we're going to sign him to a $250 million contract, right? And Kyler Murray and his agent are like, okay, whatever. Like, I study, I prepare. Like, I don't care. Put it in there, whatever you need.
Uh-oh.
Here's the problem.
I see where this is going.
They had to have known it was going to become public because all contracts can become public knowledge. They had to have known that, right? And so I'm wondering if it wasn't even about the clause. That if maybe, is Steve Keim savvy enough to know that he knew this was going to get out there one way or another, and that now they kind of put Kyler on notice? Because the truth of the matter is, even having a clause in there that says, he's not going to get paid this, guess what? If you look at the details of his contract, after a few years, they could probably get out from under it anyway. So it doesn't matter if the clause is there or not. In 2 or 3 years, if this doesn't work out, he doesn't have any guarantees after 3 years. So if that's the case, they can move on. And that's what's crazy about it is it seems more like a ploy or a tactic to basically put him on notice and make it very public that, hey, these were our reservations going into this negotiation, and we wanted to make sure everyone knew if this doesn't work out, it's not on us. It's because we feel like this guy doesn't prepare quite enough. And I'll take a step further. We've talked about the drop-off in the second half of seasons, and it's largely been attributed to Cliff Kingsbury because it dates back to his time at Texas Tech, which, look, let's be real for a second about why that doesn't hold up when you compare it to an NFL schedule. In college, you're going to play some non-conference games to start the season.
Yeah.
A program like Texas Tech is not playing your top-tier programs to start the season. They might play a Power 5. They're not going to play, a world beater like Alabama or Ohio State. Ain't going to happen. So think about that. You're going to get some layups in the beginning of the season. You're going to get some conference games, too, maybe a little easier to begin the season. So your record's naturally going to look better in the first half of the season than once you get into conference play like the Big 12 plays, which is a round robin. You're playing everyone in the conference. Now, let's just compare that to the NFL. You don't get any layups. It's the NFL. There's good teams and bad teams, but it's the NFL. You're not scheduling an FCS opponent. You're not scheduling another group of 5 opponent to begin the season to warm up, right? That's not how this is. And so I don't know that it's fair to attribute the whole postseason, the way they kind of fall apart type thing to Kingsbury as much as it is maybe the combination of Kingsbury and Murray. And then where I think it hits them the most is in the second half of seasons, and LaVar can attest to this, you're seeing some teams twice. And it's all about adjustments.
And they always fall off in the second half.
And they always fall off in the second half because if he's not preparing the way he needs to, meaning Kyler, that's maybe what they're feeling like the issue is. And maybe they want to draw to light doing this, knowing that they could always step back and take it away if it ever got this far. But now we all know he's on notice. If he's not prepared, if they don't finish strong in the second half of seasons, we know exactly why the organization and how they're going to point the finger and who they're going to point the finger at.
You do business, right, Q?
Of course.
You're a businessman, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever been a part of, like, for something you do, like, say it's for your corporation or for your charity, you put language in, the things that you're doing because they're things that you've seen, you've experienced. Sure. And logically, you're putting it down. Like, the one thing about business that you start to learn is as you get more and more experience about what you need, you add it. The more information you have, the more opportunity you have for success. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, this is like a force majeure is what you're talking about in this case.
Let's be clear here, and this is where I thought you were about to go. To have to defend yourself is basically that to me says that's admission of you. I mean, you're guilty as charged. Like, for me, if it's in my contract and I got this amount of money in a contract, they're saying to me, you're investing this amount of money into me as an asset to this organization and to this team. You are going to put every single thing in there for that amount of money that they're going to invest in you that is relevant to getting the ROI, because it ultimately comes down to, am I going to get a ROI on a return on my investment?
Or not even ROI, or are you at least going to get your money back?
Am I going to at least get my money
and not
back?
Take a loss?
Okay, am I at least going to get my money back and not take a loss?
Right.
So, to me, regardless of anything, the fact that language was put in there, that was an observation. That was an observation that he could do more, or he could be more, or he could be better. And whatever it is that observation, whoever it came from, if it's Kingsbury, whoever it is that works with him the closest, whatever, it was just be mindful of this. It was so pronounced, right? It was so defined that was necessary and needed in the negotiation to get the deal done. Well, I mean, right. would that be inaccurate? Would that be an inaccurate assessment?
And I think the only other thing that I would put out there is, if I was Kyler Murray and his agent, they probably didn't have the foresight to say, make it 12 hours or 16 hours. Because now it sounds like a number where, like, you're not questioning what I'm already doing, right? And that's what I said when I first came out. I was like, 4 hours. I was like, God, is he watching any film then?
Right.
It was like it's such a small amount over the course of a week where you could have put that at 16 and you would have said, okay, like that's like they want to make sure he's watching the adequate amount. Not like, is he watching any film over the course of the week on his own time, but like the adequate amount, like 16 hours outside of everything else you're doing throughout the day and the countless hours you watch with the quarterbacks, with the offense, with maybe your OC, separately. Like, not even that stuff. Like, you're saying when you go home, 16 hours, yeah, that's adequate outside of everything else. But 4? I mean, for real? Like, that's what I think was kind of interesting about it is it was obviously embarrassing to Kyler, and it created a distraction for the team, which is why we've got here.
Because I don't think he had an issue with the stipulation in the contract because he signed the contract. It's the fact that it got made public and he got embarrassed. and just
it was always going to be made public, though, Jonas. All these contracts are public if you want to see them.
No, I know, but the idea that was such a focus, and to see Ian Rappaport, and I call BS on this. So after Kyler Murray speaks yesterday, and then the announcement gets made, Ian Rappaport points out that, this was a decision to be taken out of the contract yesterday, meaning on Wednesday. BS. Kyler, it was an unplanned, scheduled. He didn't schedule this with the media. He stepped up to the mic and just started laying everybody out and started calling everybody out for what happened because he was embarrassed. And then the organization realized, we got to make a change here. We got to do something. If anything, it made it worse because now it's like, okay, so then why was this ever there to begin with?
Because they wanted it there. Because
I understand.
Because they knew it needed to be there. And for what it's worth, it kind of goes back to Q's original point. It's out there. So even if we had to remove it, even we're in a position where we got to remove it, it's out there, right? So there is a level of I can have plausible deniability in terms of this didn't work out. Well, you can recall back when we did the contract, we put X, Y, and Z in the contract. And we were basically put in a tough position to have to remove the clause because of public pressure. We did not want to have – you don't want to have a strained relationship with your franchise guy. You don't. But at the same time, again, there are practicalities that come in sensible logic that come into play when you're doing a contract. We sat here and discussed – I've never heard of a clause like that being in a contract ever before. Did we not?
Yeah.
It's never has been.
It's never, ever been in a contract before. Let's use a tad bit of sensible and logic, right, and some deductible reasoning here, and say to yourself, if we've never heard of a clause like this ever being in a contract, then why is it in this one?
Well, and also, you remember earlier in the offseason, it was Bidwell, the owner, who called out the organization. Remember Kyler Murray scrubbed his social media, and I was like, well, that's kind of weird. There was other
Although
reports.
It was trendy at the time. Everyone's doing it. I mean, even Bobo did it.
Yeah.
Kids do it all the
Everybody
time.
does it.
Bobo scrub.
So, yeah, maybe.
Kids his age do it.
So maybe that's just, that was their way of saying, okay, well, if you want to play this game and we want to, talk about, your worth and value to this team, we're going to need a little bit more. Just what a disaster.
Well,
man.
I don't think it's even if you want to play this game, you're going to do more to show your worth and your value. I think just maybe the conversation of why, the GM and the head coach get extensions and you don't get yours at the same time, and you're getting frustrated and you're scrubbing your social media, maybe there's a part of this that says he was offended long before now with some of the things that were stated as observations as to why we're having a hard time justifying giving you this money at this moment in time. I'm sorry, as a business owner, I've always been pro player, but I take emotions out of things anymore, because decisions in business have to be made void of emotion. You are going to make sure you protect your business first and foremost. And if I am working for that business, if I have a job within that organization, I am going to make sure that I protect my interests within that business. Somebody or somebodies were protecting their interests as it applied to Kyler Murray. And part of it had to have been the idea of how he prepares. Bottom line, you don't have to get upset about it. You always have the opportunity to fix these things.
But like I said before, the interesting thing about it is it's not like you've got a fully guaranteed contract. It's not close to that. So the reality of all this and not knowing necessarily how that's tied to either escalators or guaranteed money in this contract, it's really unnecessary, which is why they removed it anyway. Like, you don't make a business move like this and then take it back out of the contract after you've already agreed to the deal, because that's what's happened. Like, both sides agreed to the deal, and then you pull this clause back out. You only do that in order to make it public and to get it out there, because they can move on from him after 3 years anyway. That's what's fascinating to me about this is they wanted it to be public knowledge, and they couldn't leak it. They couldn't do it any other way other than getting them to agree to put it in the contract, signing and agreeing to the contract, it becoming public. and then knowing they could always come back and go, you know what, we're just going to remove it. But it doesn't – no one's going to forget about this because it's the first time in the history of the NFL we've had a clause like this. And so he's put on notice. They've made it public knowledge. I think if that was the actual thinking behind all of it for the Cardinals side, it's actually pretty brilliant when you really dive into it, because they can kind of wipe their hands and be like, sorry, dude. I mean, you guys agreed to the contract too. We didn't know it was going to be this big of a deal. Like, sorry about it. Like, my bad. I mean, we just want to make sure we're all on the same page here. I mean, it's an incredibly savvy move if Steve Keim came up with it for this way.
And your point on the second half adjustments, Kyler Murray's record as a starter first half of the season, meaning the first 8 games, 15, 8-1. Second half of the season, 7-15. So it's a complete flip from the first half to the second.
And yeah, LaVar, it's self-scouting, but it's also adjustments. Like you play your divisional teams a second time, and literally the entire game. Like I remember our entire script for our first 15 plays with any team for the most part was like, okay, are they going to come out and play this the same way they played us the last time, or like how they've been playing it recently, or are they going to play this personnel, this formation different? Like, it was all about figuring that stuff out. Yeah. And if you don't know that, if you're not on top of that going into a game, I mean, yeah, that's going to be a problem for you. You're going to have a hard time executing.
I mean, there's so many little nuances to it as well. You know, like when you talk about self-scouting, it doesn't have to be like this crazy extensive deal. You know, it's just, it really comes down to, you know, are you staring down your receivers? Are you recognizing the coverages, the pre-alignments, or just any little thing that helps? You know, I think that's what it comes down to. So it doesn't have to be this extensively complicated deal on reports of self-scouting, scouting of the other teams, and obviously, you know, moving forward, what those adjustments look like.